Hello YouTube, yet again. I'm back again with another comic review video, and this time I'd like to grab a different type of book. This time I'm going to be reviewing Kabuki Volume 1. Now, what I say this is different is because, well, for one, Kabuki is a really interesting series. This is by David Mack, and he is an incredible creator. I really love his stuff. This is the first of a 7-volume graphic novel series, and they were done, some bits were done in issues, some with other artists, and the series is a little unusual for how it's played out volume to volume. So I'm going to make the review based on each volume, but just to tell you, like, as a series as a whole, it is... I have the entire series back here, so I've read the whole thing. It is one of the best series I own. It is incredible. I know I just can't recommend this enough. It's a little different though. You really need to know how to read comics, and I don't mean that in like a dirt top to bottom, left to right kind of thing, because David Mack, along with a couple artists I know, they do some really crazy things with that basic idea of top, bottom, left, or right, to where you'll be flipping the book upside down, spinning it, tons of text could be in one section as you're reading somewhere else, and it can get a little difficult. Eventually the series will do that. This first one will, a little bit, but not so much. Not as much. He's slowly experimenting and getting more and more good at what he's doing. This first volume is a black and white inked, done story that is basically the core narrative that the rest of this series is based on. And I say that because there's some volumes later that David Mack himself, I've spoken with him once before, and he literally says that you don't need to read them in order, but you need to read this one first to understand what's happening in the others, because those can be read out of order, which I hadn't read the whole series at that point. That's why I asked the question to him. And I thought to myself, I'm still going to read them in order just because I want to know them in order. And when I look back, I'm glad I did that, but I kind of see what he means, that you can read it out of order. I don't know if I'd recommend doing it, though. Mainly because it does still have its own building narrative from each volume that goes to the next, and you might lose that if you go out of order, though each volume by itself is really good and is meant to still stand alone, which is what he was referring to. So this volume, however, like I said, I say it's the volume 1, it carries on the rest of the story, but it's not like a narrative that the whole series is not really like a narrative that we're used to for normal storytelling. It's just done in such an interesting fashion where eventually he'll get really crazy with pages and watercolors and collage stuff and splashing all over the place and making just brilliant stories. Oh, and by the way, I do have this signed by him. I was meeting him, I believe it was at Cincy Comic Expo 2013, where I got to meet him. And oh, I should have been wearing my Kabuki shirt. I bought a shirt from him while I was there, so it was pretty cool. So the book itself, if I'm not mistaken, he turned in the script for this as his writing thesis at NKU for his senior year. And in another funny thing that they say in the sides of these books is that he's been working on a Kabuki film with 20th Century Fox, but supposedly he's been doing it in this trade, and second trade, the third trade, the fourth trade, so all the way up, and I don't know, it's just one of those things that's just bobbling around in ether, and it's probably never going to happen, but I don't know. It's printed in the book, so I feel like you have some sort of obligation to actually do it, you know. But enough of stupid talk about the movie, because so far there is no film at all. Interesting, I just now saw how it's displayed in a genre. It is written as Japan Intrigue, which I guess you could call it that, because it's not really a genre at all. The story, it's kind of hard to say. If I'm just talking about this volume, I can describe the narrative to you pretty easily and give you a synopsis of it. When we start going to the other volumes, it starts getting really weird, and things just flip, and we'll follow like one character who's going through some serious psychological issues, and after that we'll follow like a character who is more down to earth and easier to understand, and we're just kind of understanding how they got into these certain situations and how they intertwine with the other books. And then we'll go back to like the crazy, and then we'll go to sane again and back to crazy, and this is like that core book that unites them all. And this book, if you read the entire thing, just volume 1, actually yes, it does say volume 1. I was wondering if it did or not, because this one, I'm pretty sure it was meant to just be the end of the book. That was the whole thing. Because it does have an ending to it, really. And if you go to the end, you think, or at least it's drawn out, that Kabuki dies at the end of the book. It's not really a spoiler, because I say you think, and it's not really true. You go through, obviously there's 6 more volumes after that, and Kabuki is alive. And this is really just the start of all the problems that will happen. Not problems as in the book doesn't work, problems as in that mess up her life. So I can get into a bit of a synopsis for this. Kabuki has really had a terrible life. She lives in a futuristic Japan world where they have an interesting government where they have like a fake broadcasted series of icon characters who kind of like fight crime. In a way, yes, they kind of fight crime on TV, and they're kind of like just the icon for what everyone assumes to be, the face of the real police. But as the book reveals, they're actually in so secret of a police force that they are actually the police force, pretending that they're not, or pretending that they really are, pretending that they aren't, if that makes any sense. So these people that actually are the main killers, assassins for the government, are also people who are portraying themselves on TV as people who are doing that same job, to the extent where you would never actually think that they're doing that. And that's how hidden they are in the government. There's a bunch of really smart twists for how everything's playing out in here. But basically, through Kabuki's life of a bunch of really depressing events, gets her into the situation where her name's not really Kabuki, but you'll get through all that in here. I really don't want to say too much about the story to spoil any of it, because it's interwoven brilliantly, and the way it plays out with the rest of the book, it's like this had to have been worked on for years and years before everything could have been intertwined so perfectly. It's like how Alan Moore, another writer, is really good at intertwining a bunch of different things that you just... if you read any issue of like Watchmen, it's like everything is just sewn together, and that's kind of how this feels. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of double meaning in things. You can go back even to random volumes, and you'll go back to this one and see like, wow, I feel like I have to refresh my memory on volume 1, because there's so much content in this that I might have forgotten by 5, because there's so much that's happened, or so many different ways of learning how to read this book, and I'm trying to figure out what is real, or not more what is real, but how do I take all this in? And eventually, not to spoil too much, but basically what happens is you learn a lot about Kabuki's past, and you learn about this group that she's in right now, and why she wants to rebel from that group, and she basically goes after their leader and takes him out. And she's escaping through, this is towards the end, she's escaping where you think she gets killed. And very, very simply, like if you had to tell the entire story of this in a sentence, that's what it is. So I really don't want to say too much about it, but you really should pick up this book. I feel like I need to read it like another 5 times or so before I even start to begin to understand everything in it. It requires a really high reading level to understand the book. Not to where I don't think I could give this to a high schooler and they would fully appreciate it. I mean, they would still get the core elements of the, say, physical events that went through. They would still get that out of it. I'm not saying it's too thick for that. But based on the concepts that are given through this and all that double meaning stuff and all the crazy panel things that go on, it might be a little much. I read this, I'd say like early to mid-college, I think. It's kind of hard to say, it's been a long time, unfortunately, because I read just this one. It kind of felt like that was it, and like, why are there more volumes? And though it was really good, I was like, I'm fine, I'll just stay with one, because I have a lot of other things I wanted to read. So I was like, okay, I'll read that one later. That was kind of stupid, because, well, not stupid, but I had my reason, but I think that I should have gone back to read more of it, because Volume 5 in particular, I think is the best graphic novel I own. And that is saying something. I've read a lot. It is probably, including like all the stuff I've read from my friends, I think it's the best comic I've ever read. Volume 5 of Kabuki. Then followed by like Volume 7 of Kabuki. It's that good. I'm not trying to be like a huge fan over this thing. It's not that like I've met David Mack and he ended up being the best person in the world, even though he's such an awesome guy. But there's just something that builds out of this, and you watch him learn, and we're like 2 books back from him learning what he's doing and how smart this guy is. He is absolutely brilliant, and this book really shows that. There's really not much else I can do to describe this book other than tell you narrative spoilers, which I don't really want to do, because a lot of the fun of this book is going like, oh, that was you who did that to that person, which caused you to do this? And eventually it just starts building because you learn more about these people as like the physical action events are going down. And it's just really woven really brilliantly, and as a first volume for the series, a very, very, very thick first volume of the series, it's done really well. I don't even think there's any chapters or anything. I'm not sure. I have to flip through this again. I don't remember. Yes, there are. I guess so. Yeah, I guess there were. It's been such a long time since I actually read through this, though you kind of get your memory refreshed when you read the other trades, but not well enough to where this is totally vivid. And yeah, he did this in issues, but they were like not quite issues. Again, this is it's really interesting what he did here, and I would definitely as I'm just rambling about pretty much nothing here, I really recommend this book. I really wanted to talk about the entire series, but you really just can't do it because you need to start with this book, and assuming you've read this book, I'll talk about the other volumes, assuming that you've read up to that point. And I highly recommend that you read this. This book, I'm trying to actually get the correct publisher because it doesn't really make sense, because I know my trade says it came from Image, and I know some of them were owned by Marvel through their imprint Icon, and I'm pretty sure there was another one that was outside of both of those, and not really sure. Some of these trades are kind of hard to find. I know in particular Volume 6. Alright, sorry about that. My camera cut out, I ran out of battery. So anyway, as I was saying, some of the volumes are kind of hard to find. Some of them I had to order online. Volume 6 was one of them. Even though I've seen, if you see David Mack at a convention, he has some of those harder to find volumes, but it's kind of scattershot. He has like random volumes there. Like, that's it. I wouldn't really try and piece the series together like that. Definitely read it in order, contrary to what he says, but it is kind of hard to find some of the volumes. I found my volume 5 and 7, which are honestly two of the best out of the series. I think they're the two best out of the whole series. I found those at half-price books, and I found lots of volume 7s at half-price books. There's a lot of them there. I think my volume 1 actually came from half price as well. Took a long time to actually find it there, but some of the other ones, volume 2, David Mack actually just gave to me, which I'll talk about that later when I actually get to my volume 2 video, but anyway, so just kind of giving you a brief overview of the entire series as I just talked about volume 1. The series is sometimes kind of hard to piece together. Just take advantage of things like Amazon and eBay and try and piece it together. Also, don't really care about hardcover versus paperback because you probably won't find the one that you want. Like if you want a whole hardcover set, don't get too picky about that because you're probably not gonna find like the next paperback of the next version or the next hardcover of the next version because it's kind of hard to do that. I think I have 2, maybe 3 hardcovers. And it doesn't really matter because they don't line up on my shelf. Like volume 1 is like yay high, and then volume 2 is higher, and then 3 is like in between, and 4, and 5, and then some are hardcover thin. It's really scattershot and kind of random. That and the publishers jump around, so it's kind of hard to find the book sometimes. This one in particular, I've only seen once at half price. Actually, this was the only one I've ever seen at half price, and I bought it. You probably have to find it online or at a comic shop. I've seen some brand new ones at comic shops before. It's still a popular series, but it's kind of hard to find some of the volumes. That's kind of a bummer, but it's definitely a really cool series. I would pick this up, give it a try. The narrative in this is really fun. I don't want to say too much and reveal it, because a lot of what makes this comic really cool is how everything intertwines, like I was saying. It's a really cool story. So, this is, however, very different from the rest of the volumes that are going to come later. So I'm going to do reviews on those as well, but they're going to be assuming that you have read up to that point. So in my volume 2 video, I am assuming that you have read this book, and you should definitely pick this one up before you read the rest of those. Now, final thoughts on that book. I mean, like I said before, it is one of my favorite series that I have on my shelf. It is actually the only series, I think it's the only series I own a comic t-shirt for. Other than someone gave me a Tick t-shirt, that's it. So it's really great. I make comics, I read them all the time, and of all of them I've read, I'm saying this is one of the best series I've ever read. I really think you should pick it up, just for that. And if you ever get a chance to see David Mack at a convention, you should definitely drop by and see him. He's one of the nicest guys, and he's absolutely brilliant if you can read more of his Kabuki stuff, because I wish I'd read up to volume 7 before I talked to him, because I would have had so much more questions, or not just questions, just more praise to throw at him, because he deserves so much more praise than what he has gotten for this book. I'm pretty sure if you just check all of the backs or the credits for this, yeah, it just says nominated for Eisner Award, nominated for 2 International League Awards, the Harvey Award and the Kirby Award. He's just been nominated for everything, but he's never really won anything huge, which is a total shame. That is so wrong. I don't know what's wrong with the world. So, yes, he's been nominated for everything, but he hasn't really won anything, which is totally a bummer. If I could give out any giant award, he would definitely give it to him. So, here's my Alex Loves This Book award. Bam! I'll see you guys next video.